All right, what is up, everyone? I'm here to share my reactions to the atrocious. Yes, I'm kind of angry right now because before I go on a rant, I just want to kind of impose a disclaimer here. I'm not just angry at the fact that before you watch the video and then give your comments or your opinions on my statements, let me just clarify that I'm not just angry at the fact that Microsoft themselves are the Xbox itself. It's not just pertaining to Xbox, but it pertains to just the mindset of the industry right now. The mindset of the industry right now, besides Sony, Sony is to a lesser extent not really involved in this whole fiasco, but as a whole, the industry is starting to become like, I guess it's because if you look back at it, the industry, I know this is a long disclaimer, but I guess when you look back at it, you kind of realize that, yeah, the gaming industry as a whole is losing money and it's not really prospering as much as it did back in the day. Although gaming has never really been too prosperous. I mean, you look back at Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, was it? It was 2, right? Yeah, I don't fucking remember. I've never really been a big fan of Call of Duty games. But if you look back, I think Modern Warfare 2 was like one of the best-selling games all the time, outsold a bunch of, even high-profile movies like AAA movies or whatever. So I guess I can understand that. But when you look at this press conference that Microsoft has released, it portrays everything wrong with the industry nowadays and how it really disappoints me as a gamer, being someone who started gaming with the SNES and the Sega Dreamcast. It's just like it's frightening to see the contrast between back then and now. But I'm digressing. Let's start off with let's talk about what I came here to talk about, the Xbox One conference. All right, so the conference starts off with Microsoft talking about, they start off with the same bullshit, oh well, we're here to show you the new generation of gaming. We're taking gaming to a whole new era. And I'm like, okay, this is the same, rinse and repeat, bullshit process they do all the time to try to get people hyped up, to try to, it's hyperbolic central. That's basically what all Microsoft press conferences so far have been. I mean, even the ones that weren't all that bad. But, so if you know the routine, you know basically how the introduction went. So next they get to introducing the console. And as I referred to, the name of the console is the Xbox One. The Xbox One. Think about this for a second. Let's just try to pose an example here. Let's say you're asking a friend, "Hey, are you going to buy the new Xbox One?" What do you think they're going to say? They're going to be like, the Xbox One? And you're going to have to explain to them that, no, I'm not referring to the original Xbox that was first released. I'm referring to a new console that Microsoft, in all their lofty glory, their lofty ambitions, decided to name the Xbox One. I mean, the name itself, from a marketing standpoint, just isn't. It's an inane decision. It's not smart. Like, think about it for a second. Just like there were rumors going around that the new Xbox was going to be called the Xbox Infinity. That name would have been a lot better. It would have sounded like, oh, the possibilities are infinite, or oh, it's or people could have made the joke to infinity and beyond, or whatever, the Buzz Lightyear famous quote or whatever. But they decided to go with Xbox One. Some of the other names, in fact, I would almost argue that Durango sounded better than Xbox One, because at least Durango, from a marketing standpoint, differentiated itself from an already existing product. Think about it. Most people refer to the original Xbox as either the original Xbox, as I am, or for discrepancy's sake, or the Xbox One. So you look at that, and it's not really smart. But let's go on. I'm not going to dwell on that too much, but that is a big issue I had. Then they talked about, the interface, whatever. The interface is really, it's kind of identical to the original, to the Xbox 360 interface, which I am not a big fan of. They pervert the screen with ads. Everything you see is ads. The minute you start up the Xbox, they're asking you, oh, buy a new brand of Doritos. Go see this new movie that's coming out. Go to this Madden. Go to this football game. Like, it's like they're not like I don't understand. I guess it's because they you know, they bought out partnerships, which is going to be another thing I'm going to lead into another discussion. But I guess they bought out partnerships with other, you know, third party companies and other companies, you know, to try to perform these strong, lasting partnerships to, you know, help boost the Xbox brand and Microsoft as a whole. But it's just not paying off. The Xbox interface itself has never been anything great. The original Xbox's interface was, it wasn't the best around, but it worked. It didn't, you know, the screen wasn't filled with ads. You could play the games you wanted to play. It was easy to access Xbox Live. It was easy to access your achievements. So I really don't know, like, what they were trying to prove here. Like, they tried to show off stuff like, oh, you have a snap mode or something like that. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's the same Xbox interface with gimmicks on top of it. Okay, so let's go on. They talked about the specs for it. It's got an 8-core CPU, 8 gigabytes of system memory, which is not GDDR3. There's no such thing as, well, no, actually, I take it back. There is such thing as GDDR3, but it can't be, it's not applicable to consoles. If you actually believe that 8 gigabytes of GDDR3 is going to be applied to a console, you're insane. It doesn't, that's not going to be applied to a console. It's going to be DDR3 RAM, which means it's not going to be 8 gigabyte GDDR5. It's 8 gigabytes, it's 8 gigabytes of DDR3. Do you really think that they would have announced, to this, I'm referring to the people that are trying to, you know, say that, oh, well, maybe it's 8 gigabytes GDDR5. It's not. Do you really think, after all the hype around Sony's, you know, 8 gigabyte GDDR5, you know, debacle, they really would not clarify that? The point, they didn't clarify it because it isn't present. They didn't want to say 8 gigabytes for DDR3 because then, you know, most people are like, oh, yeah, it's definitely inferior. Just like they kind of dodged a lot of stuff, but I'll get into that in a second. They also talked about how it's a 500 gigabyte hard drive. Found out later on that actually is it's necessary because they are going to require, from what I've heard, they're going to require game installs similar to the PS3, which is kind of ironic when you look back and you see that the PS4 is actually, you know, being rumored to not require game installs. In fact, I'm not sure, but someone from Sony themselves, a representative, may have come out and said that it's not going to require a game install. So, you know, it's kind of ironic and funny. They went with the Blu-ray drive. Obviously, they don't want to fuck up again and go with the DVD drive. That would be fucking catastrophic, especially with the sizes of games going up and up gradually. That would be catastrophic. They went on about wireless Wi-Fi, HDMI in and out, USB 3.0, blah, blah, blah. That stuff is irrelevant. Let's be honest for a second. Do you really look at a console and say, does it have USB 3.0? Who looks at that? Or I want to do it in my console with USB 3.0. No, nobody cares about that. So let's move on. So the specs itself, there's nothing really wrong with the specs. At the end of the day, that's not going to really be too indicative of the quality of the console itself, since between the PS4 and the Xbox One, it's not really too far away. Like they're not too different in terms of the architecture. Like in terms of power, raw power, they're not really too different. So I'm not going to judge them based off of their specs, but suffice to say the specs aren't my main problem. Let's go on. We're leading into my next problem. Then they show up with EA. And forgive me, I'm referencing based off of memory and a news a bunch of collection of news articles about the Xbox One. So if this is not in order, forgive me, but it's still, at the end of the day, accomplishes the same thing. You know, I'm still talking about the different subjects. They talk about how you know, they had a partnership with EA, and EA Sports comes out and they talk about how you know, it's going to be a lot of, in fact, did they say it was going to be DLC exclusive? I think they said something about it's going to be DLC downloadable content or whatever. And then they show a bunch of sports games and stuff. And it just kind of drags on, and then I know a lot of people must have lost their attention. Like most people were probably paying attention to the comments pertaining to the conference more so than the actual conference itself, which is never a good thing. I mean, it just kind of like I had to force myself to keep watching. Like times I was just clicking on different tabs, just trying to find something else interesting to look at, and the comments were definitely a lot more interesting than this part of the conference. So they talked about a bunch of sports games, a bunch of shit nobody cares about, and well, not nobody. You know, there are those sports fans, but for us hardcore gamers, the general audience that is viewing this conference, who actually spent the time out to dedicate a Wednesday to watching this press conference, nobody really cares about the sports stuff. I mean, yeah, they'll probably sell relatively well, but at the end of the day, you know. So Then they talk about, then they show Forza. They show Forza Motorsport 5. And I'll be honest with you, I've never been a big racing simulator fan. I mean, it's nothing against the racing simulators themselves. I've seen, I can definitely see why people like those. If you're a big racing fan, those games are, any racing fan's wet dream. You get to simulate racing without actually spending money on buying the cars or having to become, a NASCAR driver, anything like that. You could just kind of simulate the racing. So that's very cool. So I've never really been a big fan of that. So I can't really speak too much on that, but I will say that the hype around it after watching video stuff is not really all that high. And I think it's partly that's due majorly in part to the fact that the whole conference as a whole really wasn't that good, but I'll keep going on. Then later on, they talk about how Steven Spielberg, oh my God, they talk about how Steven Spielberg is directing, or, I guess he's directing, or it's a collaboration, whatever. He's helping them with the Halo TV series. And this is where I'm going to go off on a rant. I have never in my entire life, the entirety of the time that Halo has existed, even back with the original Xbox, I had a friend I used to play Halo 1 with on the original Xbox. It was fun to play co-op with. But as time went on, I started to wonder, why do people like Halo? And I realized after a while, it's not so much I came to a realization. It's something I used to try to make sense out of why Halo is so popular. Like, why is Halo so popular? I've never fully understood it, but I've tried to make sense out of it, if that makes sense. So the Halo TV series was kind of like, and on top of it, it wasn't really even relevant to the conference. It was relevant to Microsoft's fucked up tactics right now. Like, you're trying to appeal to gamers. Why are you showing off a TV series? That could have been a separate announcement that would have been received a lot better. It's not going to be received all that well now because it's going to be buried all under all the negative reception this conference is getting. So once again, a dumb decision to announce it there. I really don't know what they were trying to go with there. In fact, most people, when she came out on stage, thought it was going to be a video game. I myself thought it was going to be another Halo game, and I kind of joked about it on Facebook. But then they showed off another game called Quantum Break, and it's coming from Remedy, so the game itself may be good. I definitely enjoyed Max Payne 1 and 2. I definitely remember playing both of them. I definitely enjoyed both games. But Quantum Break itself, the trailer that they showcased the game with, the game that, how you introduce the game, was very poorly executed. The trailer starts off with a lot. This is my gripe. I hate when games start off, their trailers are depicted with live action stuff, because I've always found it cheesy, unless it's very well done, and that's very few and far between. There are very few instances where I've seen a live action trailer, especially introductory trailer. Sorry, I kind of botched that word. Introductory trailer for a new game, or a game that's being released, a game that's forthcoming, that hasn't been cheesy. And this trailer was really no exception. It showed off bad acting. That's another thing. The acting was atrocious. If you watch the trailer, you'll see the acting is terrible. Like, couldn't they have at least, if they were going to do a live action trailer, couldn't they have at least hired people that knew how to act? Like, the people that were acting, you could tell, was very B-movie. The gameplay itself that they showed, they really didn't even show gameplay. It looked a lot like it was a lot of CG, a lot of unfinished work that the developers had done. So really, they could have even skipped out on the game. They didn't even need to show gameplay. They could have just said Remedy is developing a new title called Quantum Break. Or better yet, they could have just said Remedy is developing a new IP. It would have got hype up. People like, oh, another Alan Wake, Alan Wake 2. We all loved Alan Wake, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, they decided to show Quantum Break. So, another dumb decision. Then they talked about how they have 15 exclusives. 15 exclusives coming to the Xbox One. Oh my God, we're all excited. But wait, you can't be all excited, because they said 15 of those are exclusives, 8 of those are brand new original games. You can tell that this is just them blowing smoke in your ears. Let's think about it for a second. 15 new exclusives. I guarantee you, out of those 15 exclusives, as they said, 8 of those will be brand new franchises. I guarantee you 90% of those will be Kinect oriented. They'll be Kinect required, or they will be heavily oriented around the Kinect. And that itself is a detriment to the games as a whole. Or there'll be Xbox Live Arcade titles. There'll be little indie titles, stuff that, they're really not going to sell consoles. So, that's just them trying to, basically convince you that they have a lot of stuff coming for it. So, I'm not impressed by that. Then they showed off, oh my God. Then they showed off Xbox, I'm sorry, not Xbox. They showed off, they did show off. They showed off a new game coming to Xbox One called Call of Duty Ghosts. And we've all seen the trailers. We saw the teaser trailer, announcing it. And the one thing I looked at when I looked at that trailer, a lot of other people have been kind of, they've been sugarcoating it. I don't sugarcoat what I say, so I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The game doesn't look all that different to me. As much as they hyped up around, they hyped up the stuff about, the game is going, there's no creativity impose, there's no creativity lock imposed on this game, so they were able to roam free or whatever. The game really doesn't look all that different. They talked about one new feature that's interesting, which is the dog, and we know when the game comes out, it's not going to really be all that great. It's going to be a bunch of scripted events. Because they know that it's an established and and it's a financial success. So they're not going to change the formula too radically. That's just them trying to make it seem like, oh, this is a new generation. Is going to be amazing gameplay. Graphically, yeah, it looks a little bit better, but does it look amazingly better to the point that it looks like a whole generational leap? Not really. In fact, there's other next generation titles I've seen so far that look much better than. I'm talking about like night and day difference. So that itself wasn't all that great. Then later on, they closed out, the conference closed after that, but then we heard other stuff that they decided to kind of, sweep under the rug so that, they don't announce it at the conference to try to diminish the conference quality, which was already shit. Even without these announcements, these just made it worse. Sorry, I clicked off the page. You got to wait. Bear with me here. All right. Then but we found out it's not backwards compatible. Like I've said, I've never really found big incentive on a console being backwards compatible, because with my PS2, I played a few PS1 games, but it wasn't the main reason I bought a PS2. And I bought a PS2 to play PS2 games. So I'm not gonna get too much into that. It's not too much of a problem to me. Let's see. What else did they show? Then they talked about how Xbox One requires Kinect to function, and this is a major fucking concern to me, and it should be, even if I don't, just a major fucking concern on Microsoft's inability to address the majority. A lot of people don't play games in the living room. Now I'm wondering, does it mean it has to be connected, or does it mean, or no pun intended, but does it have to be connected, or does it have to actually be on and it has to see you or whatever? If that's the case, that's going to be a disaster, because a lot of people don't have living room sized rooms. My room is big, but I know I'm in a very small minority of people who majorly play games in the living room. Sure, a lot of people play games in the living room, but do they mainly play games in the living room? Hell no. Most people play games in their bedroom, in the basement, whatever you like to play video games. I know a lot of people do not play video games in the living room. I know a bunch of people personally who don't. What else? In fact, that might actually, let's see. Anything else I could talk about? Oh yeah, they talked about how Xbox One does require an internet connection, but it's not to the point that you won't be able to turn on the Xbox or anything without an internet connection. They said, they really haven't gone too much into detail about that, so I'm not going to comment on it too much. What else? And that's about it, I think. Actually, I mean, in all honesty, I have to say, it's like overall the conference for me. I'm sorry. I've been kind of containing my anger right now, so if I sound a little bit more calm than when I started, that's because I thought maybe it's not best to rant too hard. But the conference itself was pretty, it was pretty abysmal, dude. It was pretty fucking bad, dude. I mean, out of 10, I would probably give it in all honesty, I'd probably give it a 2. I mean, it wasn't the stage fucking blew up or anything, or they start killing babies on stage. So I'm not going to give it a 0, obviously, but at most I could give it a 2. Compared to the Sony conference, it's a piece of garbage. I'm sorry. But yeah, those are my impressions on the Xbox One. I really hope Microsoft does not continue to go in this direction. If they do, the Xbox One is going to be a big failure. I'm sorry to say, and as I've already planned, and I've already suspected, I'm going to stay with the PS4. I mean, but before that, I mean, they've really stayed to the same franchises, and that's been my main problem with Xbox. And it doesn't seem like with this new Xbox One, despite them saying 15 new exclusives, and I already explained why that's not anything to get excited about, they really haven't changed that way of thinking. It's still the same Halo, Gears, Forza. They showed off a new Forza. They showed off a TV show for Halo, so it's going to lead into an E3 reveal for Halo 5 or whatever. And then they're probably going to show off the new Gears of War. There's going to be a Gears of War 4. There's already been rumors about it. So it's not really anything new that's drawing me in. It's not drawing any people in that didn't already like Xbox. In fact, it's drawing people away that did like Xbox. So I really don't see what they were trying to accomplish with this press conference. They could have just skipped it, to be honest with you. I mean, if you're not going to have a good press conference, and I mean, if you're not going to have a good reveal, and it's just going to be sitting here, just talking about a bunch of bullshit nobody cares about, then just skip the press conference. Why did they decide to do this? They just want to do this to match up with Sony, but they ended up kind of working in Sony's advantage. So I really don't know what they were trying to do here, but I digress once again. That's my impressions on the Microsoft press conference. Big fucking flop. Overall, universally, it's being panned, and deservedly so. And that's all, All right. That's it. Terrible. That's what we leave here with. My lasting impression on the Microsoft press conference. Terrible. Fucking awful piece of shit. Garbage. Terrible.